shining grass blades timber shaded now do quiver underfoot, and birds do whistle overhead, and water's bubbling in its bed, and there for me the apple tree do lean down low in linden lea.
Well, welcome to this latest Vaughan Williams Society interview, and our guest this time around is M. Marshall Luck. M's done amazing work founding and directing a festival devoted to promoting English music. It is thus called, not surprisingly, the English Music Festival. And the latest of these annual events is, as I speak, not all that far ahead in late May, and all the concerts this year in the magical setting of Dorchester Abbey, Dorchester that's not all that far from Oxford in the UK. And the music of Vaughan Williams features alongside much else this year, as it usually does. And Em, welcome. Great that you could join us.
Thank you very much. It's delightful to be with you.
So I know it's an obvious question, Em, but why found this festival? Sounds like a lot of work to me.
It's an awful lot of work. It really came about from my childhood. My earliest memories are of my father singing Linden Lea to me. I was lucky enough to go to St. Paul's Girls' School because of the Holst connection. I discovered the music of Holst and went to my parents and said, please, 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 I must go to this school, about which he wrote this wonderful piece of music, the St. Paul's Suite. So I went to St. Paul's, and they were incredibly supportive there. The conductor, Hilary Davin-Wetton, who's been involved with the festival since the beginning, allowed me to explore the music. I discovered Howells, Vaughan Williams and Holst, obviously, who were the three great directors of music at St. Paul's, albeit Vaughan Williams for a very, very short period of time. And then when I was 14, I became a founder member of the Vaughan Williams Society, met John Bishop and started to learn more about all these wonderful composers, people like Edgar Bainton and Ernest Farrar, who were just names and whose music you couldn't hear in the concert hall. I wanted to do something about it and just fell in love with this sound world. And so after I left university, I read greats at Oxford because I was just good at classics. I'm not a practical musician at all. I set up the English Music Festival, and this will be our 17th festival.
Wow, 17 years already. That's extraordinary. But look, there's your passion and enthusiasm. Did you sense there was an audience out there who would share that enthusiasm and want to hear music by all these, well, well-known composers, English composers, but lots of not so well-known composers?
Yes, I did, purely because of the composer societies. During my teens, I was involved in a large number of composer societies, obviously Vaughan Williams, primarily Vaughan Williams, but also Elgar and Delius and the Finzi Friends and so on. So I knew there were people out there who wanted to hear this music, but at that time, you just couldn't hear it.
The question, of course, which regularly gets asked, are we British people far too modest when it comes to lauding our native composers? And you think even, you know, well-known composers, are we somehow too bashful in promoting them, especially abroad?
We are. I think the tide is turning. Certainly when I set up the English Music Festival, time and time again, I came up against the question, fine, you're setting up an English music a festival, that's great, but why English music? Who would want to promote English music? Who would want to go and hear English music? Because at the time it was seen completely incorrectly as anachronistic, fuddy-duddy, pastoral. You know, we're coming back time and time again against that. cowpat music, the cow looking over a gate into the field of corn, all that sort of stuff, which anyone who's ever heard Vaughan Williams's Fourth Symphony, I mean, even Holst Planets, music by John Folds, English music, it's diverse and exciting and brilliant and thrilling and exhilarating and, you know, times spiky, but it was just lumped into this image of fuddy-duddy pastoralism, and that was what I was battling against.
Well, I mean, this festival, like all the ones that have preceded it, shows this massive, great range of individual composers featured.
Yes.
I mean, I wonder how you go about deciding on the repertoire. I mean, I presume that now you're in your 17th year, people are used to pushing ideas to you.
Yes, they are. To be honest, the program is mainly driven by finances. Obviously, it is extraordinarily difficult to finance a festival like this. It's very, very expensive, and finances are always tight, and especially now. So to a certain extent, I have to go with the composers who I know have estates or trusts or funds or societies who will actually support the music. That's why you will always find certain composers on the program. But apart from that, I'm also driven by the artists. We can't afford to give very good fees to the artists. So in most instances, they're performing music that they love, they know, and they want to promote. Perhaps it's English music that they can't push to other promoters because other promoters don't necessarily want English music, but it's their passion. So we will put it on, and that way we've got a range of very interesting new composers performed at the festival.
But do you bury yourself in the British Library reading room trying to look for stuff? I mean, is that something that you've done? You must have done that sort of thing.
I did early on, yes. Now less so, because firstly, finances are such an important factor in programming, but also because a lot of people come to us. I receive a huge number of emails saying such and such wrote this wonderful symphony or chamber work, you know, please look into it. So people really come to me now rather than me having to sit there. Sometimes you have to sit there and go through scores to see whether works are really worth reviving or not. Or to make new editions. My husband Rupert spends a lot of time making new editions from manuscript of scores. But I am in a fortunate position that people will come to me now and recommend works or composers.
Do you think, seeing as this is a Vaughan Williams Society interview, that you've managed to change in any way the perception of Vaughan Williams's music? I mean, what stuff have you over the years brought out from the shadows?
Well, just before this interview, I was looking through our database of world premieres, and it's striking that Vaughan Williams's name comes up a lot more than any other composer. In fact, I think we have twice as many Vaughan Williams premieres as we do any other composer. That's partly driven by Martin Yates, with whom we work for the opening night with the BBC Concert Orchestra. And Martin works closely with Dutton, and he's done an awful lot of work in conjunction with Hugh Cobb, unearthing Vaughan Williams' works and in many cases reconstructing them, orchestrating them, certainly bringing them to light. But also we've worked with John Francis and Simon Coombs and others at Albion. We've been able to put on the world premiere performances of some of the works that Albion has recorded, such as the Garden of Proserpine. And this year we have the Richard II concert fantasy, which I believe Albion will be recording shortly as well. So
you've got to tell me about Richard II, a concert fantasy. Come on, tell me about that. How long is it? What's the nature of it?
I know nothing about it. John Francis is the one who needs to be answering that question. No,
the chairman
Martin,
of the Vaughan Williams Society. Yes.
Absolutely. No, Martin literally says, you know, this is a brilliant piece. We need to do this. And I've come to trust his judgment. And he's brought a large number of premieres to us, not just Vaughan Williams, but by many other composers as well. And he's very, very rarely been a dud. So I completely trust his judgment.
I mean, obviously, what you're hoping for in the longer term is that pieces you unearth do go on and get lots of, at least some more performances. It's like, you know, contemporary music. You want to get beyond the first performance and make sure something has some sort of chance of going into the repertoire. I mean, can you point to certain works that have established themselves after you've unearthed them?
Yes, I mean, our difficulty with the premieres that we've unearthed is many of them are not published. That is why this music hasn't been heard before. So you really need a publisher. That's why I set up EM Publishing, so that we could stage performances of the pieces, record them, and then publish them so that other people can go on and play them. And some of them have been quite successful. We published 5 pieces by Gustav Holst, and I think that's our bestseller. I sell copies of that score fairly regularly, so people are playing it all over the world, quite a lot in Japan.
Why Japan?
I don't know, but really it's worldwide sales. In fact, probably more out of the UK than in the UK. but also then the works too that are recorded. So the Albion works, the works that Martin has unearthed for Dutton, and we get the world premiere performances and Dutton get the world premiere recordings. That music is out there as well. And also a lot that we record on EM Records. There are a couple of Delius suites. One we did the world premiere performance of last year, and we recorded the music of another one with Roddy Williams and the BBC Concert Orchestra, and that disc has just come out as well. So we try to present a whole package and use every method we can of getting this music out there.
Yeah. What about a real personal favorite, something you're really proud? I'm asking the earth here, but a single work or maybe a couple of works which you're really proud of having brought back into the light.
Well, it's not having brought back into the light, but there is one performance at the EMF that towers head and shoulders over anything we've ever done. And that was when we did a semi-stage performance of Holst's opera Savitri. That was about 9 years ago, 10 years ago. But it was the most magical performance you can possibly imagine. The music is passionate and moving beyond belief. And we had wonderful lighting. The actors were in beautiful Indian dress because it's an Indian story. And it was absolutely magical. And it's things like that that make me think all this hard work, all the fundraising, all the slog is really worth it.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, we want you to enjoy your own festival, having done all that work. Well, look, we're drawing to a close now. You've mentioned Richard's second concert fantasy being done this year. We've also got the sacred choral classic, "Oh Clap Your Hands." One of my favourite English songs, Orpheus with his lute. These are all Vaughan Williams works. Various works for chamber choir. Valiant for Truth you're doing. Getting it back inside Pilgrim's Progress, one of a whole range of Pilgrim's Progress pieces. But when we move on from there, other composers who have featured this year, who do you want to pick out, Em?
I'm not sure I necessarily want to pick out any individual composer. I think it's the concerts that are special this year, and the performers. There are certain concerts that always draw audiences because they are beautifully curated and they're a beautiful range of composers. Hilary Daven-Wetton's concert with the Goodwin Choir, for example, is always a real gem. And it's a range of, there's the Holst, there's the Vaughan Williams, Edgar Bainton, Robin Milford, Sir Thomas Armstrong. We've got the first modern performance of gorgeous work by Sir Thomas Armstrong in that concert. And the next evening we have the Excalibur singers, who are a hand-picked group of superb singers. So that will be wonderful. Again, more English choral works. Paul Guinery, late night concert on the Sunday. He's always good fun, and it's great to have that range of very serious music and slightly lighter, more relaxing music. And I think the last evening concert will be very special as well, with the English Symphony Orchestra and John Andrews. Again, quite a few composers involved, people like Howells, Dyson, Finzi, Bainton, Peter Warlock and Armstrong Gibbs. So I think we're lucky to have a really strong programme this year.
So many names, and some of them are new to me. Perhaps they shouldn't be new, but Frank Tours, is that how you pronounce?
Yes,
who is one. Frank Tours?
Well, the tenor, Brian Thorset, is a specialist in this composer who, again, was completely unknown to me. And he's essentially discovered his music and is championing it. So that will be something new for us all to hear, which will be really exciting.
Well, I guess it would be true to say that, Vaughan Williams is among that small group of composers whom you can use as sort of standard bearers to draw people in to hear things that they would not otherwise have heard.
Yes, completely. Yep.
Well, look, thank you so much for that. That's the English Music Festival coming up in May, the 24th to 27th. Let's give one or two details. It's the englishmusicfestival.org.uk. englishmusicfestival.org.uk for details. People can actually subscribe to a journal called Spirited, may they not, to learn more about the festival and all sorts of additional things about the composers represented.
Absolutely, and other things as well. We have an article on Art Deco art in ocean-going liners, for example, in the latest issue. But all sorts of things, huge range of composers represented, and various other features as well.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and it's enthused me all over again. And I must get along to Dorchester Abbey in just a few weeks' time. I will look very much forward to seeing you and hearing all that music then. Thanks, Em.
Thank you very much indeed.